What is up, my dudes? Today I want to talk about titanforging and why I think it's bad for the game and how I think that Blizzard could fix it. I want to make this video so that more people start talking about titanforging, and because I don't think that Blizzard has appropriately addressed the damage that titanforging is doing to the game. I think that Blizzard at the moment is far too adamant on keeping the current iteration in the game without altering it in any way. And to be honest, I don't think that they should be. The first reason that I don't like titanforging is that I think it's creating a lot of disappointing loot. Now, I think no one can deny that titanforgers are exciting. However, the issue is that they're creating a trade-off in loot where average drops are way less exciting than they used to be. So, for instance, I was really excited to get my Gale Caller's Boon from Shrine of the Storm Mythic 10. It's a really powerful trinket, really exciting, quite unique. And I was really excited to get it. And when it finally dropped, I was quite disappointed. Or I was happy, but there was an element of disappointment because it didn't titanforge. I just got a bog standard 370. Now, the issue, and the reason that I was disappointed, because and I think a lot of players want to get the best gear. I think that is a drive for people in World of Warcraft. I think it's a big element of why people raid and do so much content in the games, because they want to get their characters so as powerful as they possibly can, to output as much damage, healing, tankiness that they can. I think that's a natural element of the human drive to play World of Warcraft. Now the issue is that that's no longer realistically attainable because of the walls of RNG and the levels of luck. You have to not only get the item to drop, but you also have to get the item to titanforge as well. So I think because players want to get the best gear, that when they're doing the hardest difficulty or the most rewarding difficulty, and they're not getting the best possible gear, it kind of diminishes and dampens the joy of having an item drop. Even though it's 370, I know that it could have been 395. That's a huge discrepancy of power. And I think that's something that Blizzard is not addressing in the titanforging system, is the amount that it is diminishing and dampening the joy of getting normal gear. Because at the moment, you get an item and you think it finally dropped, great, it's an upgrade, but it didn't titanforge. And it's that level of kind of getting unlucky while getting lucky as well. You were lucky enough to have it drop, but it didn't titanforge. And I don't think when you should get an upgrade that it should be, or an item that is potentially BIS for you. For instance, the Gale Callers is one of the best trinkets for Assassination Rogue. And if it could only drop as a 370, I would have got my best in slot. But instead, I got quite a worse version. It's a 25 item level discrepancy, because the top it could have been was 395 of a socket. So I think players want to get the best gear, and with titanforging, it doesn't make that realistically attainable. And I think that is causing a lot of disappointment in loot. Now, the second point is that titanforging is creating unrewarding and unsatisfying loot. Now, I'm going to go back to the old system of loot within World of Warcraft and how it used to work. Within the old system, you used to kill a boss and it would drop a certain item, and the item level of that was fixed. There was no kind of variance. You knew it was going to be a certain item level if it was dropped. Nothing was going to change. It was going to proc a socket, it was going to proc a tertiary stat, but most importantly, it was going to be the same item level. So, for instance, a player killing Madness of Deathwing, he might not get Girthalak on his first try, or his second, or his third, but when he finally gets it on his fourth or fifth, he knows that it's going to be a heroic level. So, say Girthalak was introduced in today's Uldir, it would be 370. Now, this was rewarding because the player knew that he had earned that item, because he had done heroic content and been rewarded with a heroic item. There was a direct correlation between the difficulty of the content he was clearing and the reward of the loot. You do 370 equivalent content, heroic is 370, and you get a 370 piece of gear. That's fair, rewarding, and he feels like he earned it. Within the new system, you can kill a boss and you can get the item normal, or to get the best item and the most exciting item, it can titanforge. Now, this is exciting, and it creates that element of surprise, and oh wow, it titanforged, your guild, that pops off, right? But the issue is that, in my opinion, and I think I might speak for a lot of players when I say this, it's inherently unrewarding, because at a core, titanforges are unearned, because you didn't earn that piece of gear. You earned the original 370, so if it was 370, sure, you can feel proud of that, and you earned that, and I do with my 370 items. But the issue is, you don't earn, say, a Titan Forge. So, if he was a normal raider, doing normal Madness of Deathwing, and he got a normal Titan Forge Girthlak to the same item level of a heroic Girthlak, or beyond that, which can happen, the issue is that he didn't earn it, and there is an indirect correlation between the level of difficulty of content that he's doing and the reward that he is getting. Now, in terms of a reward system how this feels as a player, it's exciting, but I think it's less satisfying and unrewarding because they didn't earn it. And I think earning gear and earning rewards is a lot more satisfying and a lot more enjoyable as a player than being lucky. Because when you earn an item and that you work for it for 5 weeks and it finally drops, you can be proud of that item. And I don't think you can be proud of Titan Forges. At least I'm not Titan Forges. When any item drops in a raid that Titan Forges, it's always the response is always, "Damn, you are so fucking lucky, man." Whereas I feel like it used to be that, "Damn, you're like quite lucky." Yeah, sure, they'll admit lucky that you got it to drop, and also like, "Congratulations, you got the item to drop. You deserve that item because we did this level of content and you got that level of reward." Now, my third point is that Titan Forging is trivializing harder content and killing aspiration within the game. Now, again, within the old system, it used to be that you would clear harder content and you would get better and exclusive rewards. So, to be Heroic Dragon Soul geared, or to have any item from Heroic Dragon Soul, you had to clear Heroic Dragon Soul. You had to kill a Heroic Dragon Soul boss. There wasn't a cache from Time Walking. There wasn't Titan Forging from normal. So you couldn't get, what, 370 from normal. You had to kill Heroic. Now, exclusivity, in my opinion, and I think some other players might agree with me, is good for the game. Because it creates this sense of desirability and aspiration to go and get that gear. And I think it's a very organic way of keeping players playing. Instead of the current system where, say, someone's 8 out of 8 Heroic, and they just keep on clearing Heroic for the chance that they maybe get a fucking Titan Forge. I think it's a much more organic and rewarding system to have them aspire to get better gear from better content. Because nowadays, and sure, the average Mythic Raider is going to be more geared than the average Heroic Raider. I'm not trying to imply that, you know, that's ever going to happen. I don't think there's a recorded incident of that happening. But when you can get a certain item that is 395 from Heroic, or 390 with a socket, and Mythic's base item drop is 385, it undermines the exclusivity and wonder of harder content and more difficult content. It also undermines the respect of good gear. And I think that kept a lot of people playing because it was they knew to be like the biggest dick in Borealis or in Ironforge as it used to be, right? You had to clear that content to get that gear. And it's a natural kind of desire to be the best and look the best and, you know, have the best gear. And yeah, I think that kept people playing. And there's less of a reason to do now, and there's a much more unhealthy system in place where it's just a gamble. It's just an addiction to, you know, hopefully I see that pop up and it starts flashing and the Titan Forge and not a fucking indestructible. I think also an issue within the aspiration is that it's creating obsolete bosses that people haven't killed. So if you're a Heroic Raider fuck, I'll use a different raid, Wrath of the Lich King. If you were doing a Heroic Raid and you had every single item of Sourfang, you did not need to kill Sourfang again. Like, you knew that you were done with him, right? Nowadays, that is the same, right? If I have every item of Heroic Talok, I don't need to kill him. I can maybe Titan Forge, but I don't think that's a big enough drive. I probably will, just, you know, to get it out of the way. But the issue and obsolete bosses that it's creating is in difficulties that players have not cleared. Now, I have a good friend, I've been friends with years, and this is not an attack on him at all. And I'm not trying to, you know, shit on him for having Titan Forging and getting lucky. It's not his fault. We're all under the whim of the system of Titan Forging and Blizzard system that they've implemented. But he has 3 Titan Forges that are 390, and he's 2 out of 8 at Mythic at the moment. I think he has bracers, back, and a trinket. And all 3 of those items, or 2 of them at least, drop off Fetid Devourer. And he has the Mythic versions without killing Mythic. So, if his guild decides to go and clear Fetid Devourer, he's less inclined to come and maybe less motivated to go, because he doesn't have that sense of progression and that feeling when progressing the boss of, oh, I'm going to stick around because I might get, you know, the trinket or something. He's looking at the loot table, and I think a lot of people do this when they're progressing to see what they're anticipating and aspiring to the gear that they might get. They're looking at the gear and thinking, oh shit, I might get the 385 trinket or the 385 braces. But he has the 390 braces, the 390 cloak, and the 390 trinket. So he has gotten all of the rewards from that boss without even killing it once. And I think that's unhealthy for game. I was in the same situation in Legion. I had every single item from Mythic Grothy Worldbreaker on Titanforge Heroic, and I remember thinking, there's not much point in me aspiring or like going into Mythic, because it was towards the end of the expansion. I had to pug it. We might not kill it. It'd be a lot of effort, a lot of, you know, raging, and yeah, I already had the items, and the only way I would get an upgrade from it would be Titan forging. So I think that is a killing aspiration to go and clear that content, because it creates these situations where they don't need any rewards from Mythic, and they often argue that oh, these single incidences where a heroic raider gets a better item than a mythic raider, and they're saying, well, that doesn't, you know, and the average, it's like great, but like in the actual context of that player, it's killing their kind of aspiration and goal to go clear harder content because they don't need anything from it. And that is undermining Mythic, because, as I said, the exclusivity made people want to go get it. It's the same as, you know, limited edition, expensive items and like memorabilia that you can get in real life. People want them because they're exclusive and they're exciting, and, you know, you can brag. And sure, it might be like, you know, a negative attribute, but it's reality. And I think they'd be forced to, you know, avoid that or ignore that. Now, my fourth reason is a bit more abstract and theoretical. I think that Titan forging is destroying the atmosphere of WoW and also destroying the meritocracy. And what I mean by that is that to get certain gear, you had to be a certain skill level, as I said previously. So if you saw a player with full Black Temple, I think it was Slayer set for rogues, I might be wrong, and they had the Warglaives, you knew that they had killed Black Temple. You knew that they were a good player who was raiding. And that was exciting. It created, as I said, aspiration and a drive to, you know, go to that tier. And also for the player, so for the players looking at that player and inspecting him and looking at their gear, they would get that sense of, oh, I want to be like that. I think everyone has a moment where they saw a player like that and you're like, fucking hell, I want to get that gear, that mount, that item, whatever. And nowadays, that is, I think that kind of element of the game and that atmosphere and the meritocracy of being rewarded for doing content with exclusive rewards that not people can't get without doing that content has diminished greatly. And the issue with this is also that this does not just affect, you know, the top tier, the equivalent of Slayer, like, you know, Warglaives or Mythic Raider. It transcends all levels of the game, and any skill level or tier player has been affected by this. So, a raid finder player in 340. He's probably picked up a couple Titan Forges from Mythic Zeros and some LFR bosses, maybe 355, 360. Now, the issue is that he is getting gear that is above the level of the next tier, or at the same level. So when they're looking at a normal raider and they're thinking, oh man, I want to get that gear, there's less of a drive because he knows he can get it from LFR. And I know definitely nowadays, now that I'm actually raiding Mythic, after aspiring to get to that level for so long, I'm thinking, I don't feel rewarded. I don't feel like my aspiration and like effort to get as good as I have at the game has been kind of rewarded, because I know that other people are getting these pieces by getting lucky, and it's undermining the kind of prestige of these items. Now that I've gone over the reasons that I don't like Titan forging, I want to go over the merits of the system and why I think that Blizzard is keeping Titan Forging in the game. Now, the first reason that I think that Blizzard is keeping Titan Forging in the game is that it's keeping content relevant. Now, it's quite easy to get completely 370 gear at the moment. You can clear Heroic Oldir, do it maybe 4 weeks, and Mythic 10s as well coupled in there. And Warfront as well with that. And you'll be completely 370. At that point, the content's kind of obsolete for you. You're kind of done with it because there's no rewards, unless, you know, Titan Forging exists. So, Titan Forging kind of gives people a reason to go back to content they've already cleared. So, this is just people, we see this, you know, people are completely 370. People are asking for 375 gear to do Heroic Oldir, which exceeds the item level of the content. And it's because people are like hoping that they get a 390 item from, you know, one of the bosses. So it is keeping that content alive, and I do think that aspect of the game is good, that there's a longevity and kind of durability of content, so that people don't get dried out and there's no reason to go back to the content after you've done it a few times. The second merit of the system and why Blizzard's keeping it in the game is that it's acting as a small boost for certain players. So you might have like a heroic guild who's progressing Gahoon, and they might be 1 or 2% off killing the boss. Now, Titan Forging helps players kill bosses that they might not be able to. So without Titan Forges, they might be 1 or 2% off. After they do a couple re-clears and they get a few really strong items, some Titan Forge or Warforged weapons, 380, they might be able to get Gahoon down. And I think that is good to a certain extent. And within the current system, I think it's fine. The element of how players are getting boosted with Titan Forges. I think it's fine because it's really disappointing and disheartening doing content when you're fully geared and not being able to kill it, being completely stuck on it. So you're fully 370 and you still can't kill Gahoon, and you know you're not going to get any stronger, and you're just waiting for people to do it right. I think it's okay to have that small boost and that small increase in power to help you get through it. Now, although these merits are good, and this is a positive element of Titan Forging, I think that the current iteration of Titan Forging is not the only way to achieve these qualities. So I'm going to propose my solution and my system that I think would be better than Titan Forging. I think that they should rework the forging system and move away from an RNG-based kind of atmosphere. So I think they should introduce a currency that you can earn in raiding, Mythic Plus, and maybe Arena, potentially Heroic Dungeons as well. And you could use this currency to upgrade your gear. 5 item levels, you could Warforge it, and then Titan Forge it another 5, capping out at 10. They could also create 2 literal forges in the game, a Warforge and a Titan Forge, similar to the Obliteran Forge in Dalaran. That would give players a kind of sense of agency and feel like that they're in control of their characters, which I think Titan Forging has kind of lost on the players. I think fundamentally it would be a lot nicer to say that, oh, I'm going to go Warforge my weapon, or I Titan Forge my weapon, rather than my weapon Titan Forge. At this point, they have these items have more agency than us as players. Yeah, so players could spend the currency to Warforge and then Titan Forge their gear. And the issues that this would solve is that there would, in my opinion, no longer be a huge problem of disappointing loot, because as long as you got the item, you could then choose your currency to spend it on it or not. Whereas now, if you get an item and it doesn't Titan Forge, it's stuck at 370, and you're waiting on getting, you know, lucky with another item. It would also bring back rewarding and deserving loot, because you knew that as a Heroic Raider, you would get 370 gear, and the maximum that you could get was 380. And I don't think that is a bad thing at all. I don't think Heroic Raiders should be getting 395. I don't think LFR Raiders should be getting 360. And I'm sorry if that offends you. I just think that'd be good for myself and the player base, and at a core, good for you as well. I think it would make the game a lot more satisfying, because you would know that you'd done the content and you had been rewarded for that level of difficulty. And also, it would avoid the kind of situation where gear is exceeding the difficulty of the other difficulty, the next level. So you wouldn't be getting 385 heroic pieces. So my situation, or the situation that my friend is in at the moment, where he doesn't need anything from Feta Devour and Mythic, despite having not killed it ever. This would also maintain repeatability, because players would still want to go back to get, you know, the best gear that they possibly can, get the best upgrades that they could. It would also avoid disappointment, because it's quite easy to go for a Mythic Plus and not get an item at all, let alone a Titan Forge, and then you think, well, fuck, because I'm in that situation with my Rogue, he's completely 370, and I'm getting a bit disillusioned with doing Mythic Plus, where we're not making the timer, and I'm not getting a score increase, and I'm not getting Titan Forge as well, because it feels like I'm wasting my time. And yeah, it's also very clear to go through an entire reclear of Heroic Uldir without getting a single Titan Forge. That's very common. Also, the currency would always be useful, because even if you do get a Titan Forge, you have to make sure that you don't get a Titan Forge on the item you already have. So if my friend were to go into Heroic, get a 385 Titan Forge, it's great, you know. From 370, yeah, it's awesome. But it's the wrist, or the back, or the trinket. It's pretty fucking shit, because, you know, he got lucky enough to get a Titan Forge, but then got lucky. If it was a currency system, the players could choose how to use their currency and target items that they want to upgrade. Also, this would create a bit of player agency as well, because say a Heroic Raider, he's got, you know, 8 out of 8 Heroic, and his guild's deciding to do Talok Mythic, and he's looking for his gear, and obviously because Talok is the first boss, it's going to be the first one that he's going to kill, unless he does a full 8 out of 8 clear, he's going to have the most kills on Talok Heroic. So he is most likely to have Talok Heroic Titan Forge gear that may even exceed or be the same level as Mythic Titan Forge. So he wouldn't need any gear from doing Talok Mythic. He's less inclined to clear that content, especially when it might be more difficult and harder for his raid to progress. Within the currency system, he could choose to not Titan Forge gear from the first couple bosses of Mythic, because he knows, or he aspires to clearing that content and getting rid of that Heroic gear. I don't think that would be bad for the game at all. I think that would be a lot more satisfying. This will also maintain the boost element of Titan Forges, so each week people would get more currency, more ability to upgrade their gear, and get higher item level, higher DPS, and I think that would be good for the game. People wouldn't be stuck on, you know, having 0 rewards. And the thing is also that Blizzard has the control here, that they can pace out however they would like. You know, you get this amount of currency that you can use for this many upgrades a week. You know, maybe like 1 or 2 items a week, maybe more. It's up to them. And obviously the system needs balancing and kind of adjusting to the way that Blizzard would like, but I think it has got potential, and I think that Blizzard is kind of pulling an ostrich here, where they're just, you know, sticking their heads in the sand and saying, hey, Titan Forging has got all these positive elements, and they're not discussing the drawbacks at all. When you see their Blizzard posts and their responses, they're only addressing the they're only defending it in the terms of, well, it does these good things, and they're not talking about the way that it's actually affecting the player base. Small minor point is that it also will reignite the meritocracy, because people would deserve their gear. You know, you would say, yeah, I've got 380 gear, I'm a Heroic Raider, I've put all this time into re-clearing Uldir and, you know, boosting my gear and upgrading it, so that I can get it. And that I've earned that, because it's not exceeding the difficulty of content, you know? So, overall, I think that would be a better system, and I think Blizzard, even if they don't apply my system, they do need to address the issues of Titan Forging. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it, and I would love to hear what you have to say about the Titan Forging system. Thank you. Goodbye.